Hello students, I hope you are all fine and in good health. In this audio presentation, I will discuss few points that is related to the chapter Discovering Tut. The saga continues. So dear students, you can see I have written Discovering Tut. The saga continues. Then in the next line I have written things to remember. I have subdivided it into some points, and point wise I want to discuss it. So let me come to point number 1. See, it is written Discovering Tut, the saga continues is a chapter which gives us an in-depth insight of Tutankhamun, the last ruler of the powerful Pharaoh dynasty in Egypt. Because the entire chapter, as you know by this time, it is related with Tut or Tutankhamun and the mysterious way he died. And remember, dear students, he was a teenager at the time of his death. And he was coronated as a pharaoh at a very young age also. He was a teenager when he died, just now I told you. And his death was a mystery. How he died, that is a mystery. Some speculated. Now speculation means guess. Some prediction or some speculation. So some speculated that he was murdered. He ruled in Egypt and its empire for centuries. Now he ruled in Egypt and its empire for centuries. In 1922, his tomb was discovered by Howard Carter, and Howard Carter was a very famous British archaeologist. After 80 years, he was taken from his resting place for CT scan, which offers to solve the mystery of his life and death by creating a forensic reconstruction. In the year 1922, his tomb was discovered by Howard Carter, and as it is written in your text, 80 years later, again CT scan was done in order to reveal some new facts related with his life and his mysterious death. Now, dear students, I am moving on to point number 2. Something about Tut's father and grandfather, about his family, some informations about his family line you will get in this point. So let me continue. Tut's grandfather Amenhotep III was a very powerful pharaoh who ruled over a period of 40 years. His son Amenhotep IV is said to be the father of Tut, King Tut. His son Amenhotep IV succeeded him and began the strangest period in the history of Egypt. He promoted the worship of Aten. Aten is actually the sun disk, or dear students, you can say Aten is actually the sun god. Even he changed his name to Akhenaten, and Akhenaten means servant of the Aten. He also moved the religious capital from Thebes to the new city of Akhenaten called Amarna. And remember one thing, I guess you have read the chapter. One thing is very important to state, that Tut's father, he was a very violent king. He was very cruel also. And during his reign, there was anarchy and chaos in Egypt. He further attacked Amun, and Amun is one of the principal god of Egypt, destroyed his images and closed his temples. Another mysterious ruler succeeded him, who died soon. Next, Tutankhamun, also known as Tut, sat on the throne and ruled for 9 years. Tut ruled for 9 years because Tut ascended the throne. He worshipped god Amun in the old ways. However, he died mysteriously because till now we don't know the actual cause of his death. Now, dear students, I am moving on to point number 3. When Tut's mummified body was discovered, he was laid with lots of gold, wealth and everyday items like a bronze razor, games, clothes, cases of food and wine. Carter discovered him after searching for many years. Now, actually, Carter went on his search expedition for a long time, and finally, after many years of futile searching, he finally discovered the mummy of King Tut. Along with the mummy, he discovered many other things that is kept inside his coffin, like bronze razor, games, clothes, cases of food and wine, all this. Carter decided to investigate his three nested coffins. Some parts of the Tuts treasures in the tomb were already looted by the tomb raiders, so he became extra cautious while he was about to remove the jewelries from the body of King Tut. I am moving on to point number 4 now, dear students. His tomb was rock cut 26 feet underground, which had wall paintings. On the outer coffin, Tut's face was gilded. In the first coffin, Carter found the garlands of olives, lotus petals, and cornflowers. It showed that he was buried in the months of March or April. How it is been stated? Because the blooming time for the olive, lotus, and the cornflowers is in the month of March or April. So finally, it showed that he was buried in the months of March or April. The third and the final coffin put Carter into trouble. Why? Because of the ritual resins, and it is a chemical substance that has fixed the body so tightly that it was very difficult for Howard Carter and his men to remove it. So let me come to the next point. As I told you about the ritual resins that had hardened the body of King Tut, and it was very difficult to remove it. It is written in the next point, dear students. See, the resins, I told you, it's like a chemical substance used to cement Tut to the bottom of the solid gold coffin was hardened enough, making it impossible to move. He put the coffin in the sun for several hours in hope for the resins to loosen up, but it didn't work. Even Carter kept it at a high temperature also. Still, the ritual resins was intact. It was not getting loosened up. So he had no other option but to chisel the mummy. Finally, he removed the resins with the help of chisel and hammer, because there was no other option. Even in the scorching heat of the sun also, the chemical substance was still intact, and the body, it was very difficult to take out the body. So for the final option left for him and his men were to chisel the body, and they did it with chisel and hammer. Carter felt he didn't have any other choice, as to if he hadn't cut the mummy from limb to limb, thieves or tomb raiders would have looted the gold. There was no other option, because more or less 50% of the jewelry or the rich gold jewelries were already been looted by the tomb raiders. So Howard Carter had no other option. He had to chisel the body. His men first removed his head. His head means the head of King Tut. And then they cut off every joint, every major joint of the body. After removing the body parts, they placed it on the layer of sand in a wooden box and put it at the original place. And then after removing the jewelries, then they used a bit of a padding, and finally they placed the body again on a layer of sand in a wooden box, and finally they again placed it in the same place from where they had taken it. Now I am moving on to point number 6, second last point, dear students. In 1968, the mummy was X-rayed by an anatomy professor, almost after 4.5 decades later, because Howard Carter discovered it in 1922. So I told you all 4.5 decades later means it was in 1968. That means mathematically 46 years later, an anatomy professor did X-ray experimentation, did an X-ray related with the whole body of King Tut, and new thing were discovered. And what was been found after doing the X-ray? His breastbone and front ribs were found to be missing. That is something very strange. So again, it gives more interesting clues. And now again, his death is again covered in mystery, how he died and when he died, and most importantly, why he died, in which way he died. That is also very mysterious. Because in 1968, when the X-ray was done, his breastbone and front ribs were found missing. Now, dear students, I am moving on to the last point. On 5th January 2005, Tuts was taken for CT scan, that is computer scan, which takes hundreds of X-rays and creates a three-dimensional image. 3D image was created. The night of the scan, the workmen carried his body from the tomb in a box. They climbed ramp and stairs and lifted it on a hydraulic trailer. It's like a crane machine, dear students, that held the scanner. The scanner stopped working, which paused the procedure. Because of the fan, it stopped moving because of sand entering the blades of the fan, and it stopped moving. After using a pair of spare fans, the scan was finally done. After 3 hours, his body was taken back to his tomb, where his body is resting in peace. So after almost 3 hours, his body was been taken back to his tomb, where his body is resting in peace. Remember, dear students, it is actually there is a correction, please make it. Instead of 2009, it will be 2005. So in that year again, his body was taken out for doing CT scan and all those things. So the main scanner, it stopped functioning. So with the help of the spare fans, the work was being done. And finally, after 3 hours of rigorous experiments, scanning process and all these things were completed, again his body was placed 26 feet underground from where it was being taken out for the experiment. So these are some of the important points, or rather to say some of the important things that you can remember. These 7 points are very, very important related with this chapter, Discovering Tuts. The saga continues. So dear students, I hope so that you will revise and listen to this audio presentation, and if there is any doubt, kindly let me know. Thank you students. Thank you all.